All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our conversation on the future of Syria. I'm Betsy Popken, the Executive Director of UC Berkeley's Human Rights Center. On December 8th, 2024, nearly 14 years after nonviolent protests erupted in Syria against the regime, and nearly 14 years after regime forces started killing, injuring, and imprisoning civilians, President Bashar al-Assad fled the country. This was a moment that so many Syrians had dreamed about for years, as Bashar and his father Hafez ruled the country with an iron fist for 53 years, imprisoning, torturing, and killing their opponents. One of these Syrians, Noura Aljizawi, a brilliant Syrian opposition negotiator who negotiated opposite the Assad regime in talks mediated by the United Nations, and whose work I had the pleasure to support during this time, is here with us today. She was a master's student at Holmes University and joined the youth movement in 2011 to protest against regime policies. She fled the country after she was released from prison. Noura is now a senior researcher for Citizen Lab at the University of Toronto. Welcome, Noura.
Thank
First,
you.
congratulations to you on a Syria free from Assad. And I just wanted to start by asking, how do you feel right now?
Oh my gosh, it's been already 10 days and yeah, I still feel like, is it a dream? Because it's been a dream for like I remember my grandfather passed away while he was dreaming uh, of free Syria. Um, I was a child back then. And since 2011, we believe that this dream is our dream, and we need to free and liberate Syria from Assad and from dictatorship. So, just like after all of these years, more than a decade, 13 or 14 years of our life, it just, yeah, all what I'm thinking about dreams really can become true.
Mm-hmm.
It's very
That's
overwhelming.
wonderful.
It's very emotional, and it's still hard to process because, like, yeah, you can. We are really celebrating. We are really happy, but just thinking about the other activists, other fellow activists that were murdered, or people we lost throughout this very tough road, uh, people who were imprisoned and didn't come back. We were celebrating
Mm-hmm.
that the doors of prisons and security facilities are being now finally destroyed. People are
Mm-hmm.
opening them and freeing detainees. But the fact that many detainees remain disappeared, it's really heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we cannot celebrate fully until we, as activists, as their friends and colleagues, as well as their families, would have the relief of knowing the truth.
Mm-hmm.
It's our right. It's our right as a community also to grieve these
Mm-hmm.
people, to honor their memories and sacrifices. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's a lot of mixed emotions, I say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as you mentioned, innocent protesters have been released from prisons like Sydnaya, but there are thousands more who have not been found. Are there any particular stories that have struck you?
So many stories, and the fact that uh, it's not only protesters who were imprisoned.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Women in particular were imprisoned with their babies, with their children. The story that I've been following for years is Dr. Rania Al-Abbasi, who was
Mm-hmm.
detained back in 2012, uh, a day after the detention of her husband. And with her, they arrested her six children. They were detained a few days after me. And when I was released in late 2012, um, I couldn't feel happy. I couldn't feel that I'm really enjoying my freedom because I had
Mhm.
this commitment to think about people that I left behind,
Mhm.
uh,
Mhm.
including children like them. And for years, I couldn't stop thinking about them, how these kids are really growing up in prison if they are still alive.
Mhm.
Um, they were all enforcedly disappeared. Their family didn't know anything about them. Their uncle is here in Canada and has been a great advocate for their freedom and for the
Mhm.
cause of his sister and her children. But I was like many Syrians, I was waiting
Mhm.
for this family and for so many other children and who went disappeared with their mothers to be freed, to be found somewhere.
Mhm.
But until today, there's no clue. So just thinking about these six children who are
Mhm.
still, whether like still alive, growing up in darkness
Mhm.
since 2012, or who were murdered under torture, or maybe were killed to force their parents to confess or to do something. I don't know. Like just this uncertainty, I'm not
Mhm.
their direct relative, but I'm still feeling all of
Mhm.
these emotions. So, what about
Mhm.
the people who are directly related to them, who are like their grandmothers, their uncle, and
Mhm.
they other people? So it's really heartbreaking, and I believe this like the wants of having these uncertainty and no answers of all of these missing people, in particular the most vulnerable
Mhm.
ones. It's gonna stay with us, like it's gonna be the open wound for decades, I believe.
Mhm. Based on this, what accountability do you think needs to happen for Assad? And should others also be held to account?
Oh my God. Yeah, the fact that he fled the country in this way, it's not accountability. It's not the justice
Mhm.
that he deserves. He doesn't deserve to be free, even if he's hiding somewhere.
Mhm.
And I believe, like, as the Society in Exile, our work has just started to make sure that he's going to be held accountable and he couldn't enjoy even the exile that he has been in now. But to think about the future of the country, accountability should not be only on the level of Assad uh, and his inner circle, because all of them they vanish. They were already acting as this gang. They were serial killers. They have their connections with countries like Russia, Iran, and other countries in the region, who's willing to offer shield and protection for them. But we still have in the country officers and people who were like in the top hierarchy to command the torture and to sponsor and to order all of these torture and crimes to happen. These people should be held accountable. Justice must start, and it's going to be a really tough process for so many reasons, including how many is enough.
Mhm.
I have no answer to this. Uh,
Mhm.
who's going to be held all of these people accountable? And justice must be above all. Um, I know, like, you know, some actors in the region might intervene to guarantee pardon to some uh, commanders that they might have interest in. But are we
Mhm.
really, as a community, as victims and as civil society believing in human rights would be convinced with that? No, we must have a say to exclude everyone who has blood on their hands. And it's going to be like very difficult because, on one hand, some of the controversial Security Council resolutions and somehow is about to work with them, but how to exclude the ones who were engaged
Mhm.
in the suffering of Syrian people. Uh, I believe like it's going to be the hardest job, even harder than
Mhm.
anything else.
Mm-hmm.
But speaking from the interest and speaking from the perspective of what's the best for the in the future for this country and for these people in our country and for the future of Syria is absolutely uh, we couldn't dream of sustainable peace, and we couldn't move
Mm-hmm.
on without meaningful transitional justice and
Mm-hmm.
accountability. I know there will be so many levels of accountability, so many processes, including probably, and I hope that it would happen, restorative justice and opening the space for victims and their families to speak. But
Mm-hmm.
when, who, and to what level it's going to be, I don't have answers in the meantime.
Mm-hmm. And, you brought up the accountability piece of it. But there's also the idea of reconciliation, right? There were many protesters like you who were imprisoned, many people kind of fighting on behalf of the Syrian civilians. And then there were the people that continued to back the regime. How do you see reconciliation taking place between kind of those two sides?
Without holding the main criminals into accountable, it won't be easy to open the space for reconciliation. I know that the awareness among the Syrian people is not lower level. Our people are really well aware and educated about the practices of the dictatorship to force some people. So not everyone in the other side is a criminal, absolutely, but opening the
Mhm.
space between these communities to share their grievances, to talk about the future, and to figure out how to reconcile, how to set up new rules to live together again. It wouldn't happen before or without either. Like the first step should be really starting the stage of holding the main criminals into account. And
Mhm.
then on the societal level, it's about the more about the reconciliation and a lot of tough emotional, I would say, uh, like I can say it from now, it's going to be
Mhm.
emotional tough discussions, but I believe our community is capable to go through all of this. But the
Mhm.
main barriers and obstacles of these starting these reconciliation talks is going to be the people who were aware and who were part of this authoritarian machine that committed crimes and
Mhm.
atrocities for decades.
Mhm. I have a question here from someone in the audience. What do you mean by accountability? And does this take the form of an international criminal court proceeding? Or is there room for some sort of truth and reconciliation process? And then actually, maybe I will pause. Hosam Hafez was able to join us. Hosam, good to see you.
Hello, good morning. Sorry for being late. I just got mixed up with the timing.
Oh, that's okay. So Hosam was a diplomat for the Syrian government when the regime started attacking innocent protesters in 2011. He fled the country with his family, and he's now a lawyer, arbitrator, and academic. Um, Maybe let's go back to that question for you, Noura, about kind of what, in your mind, does accountability mean? Does it mean involving international actors like the ICC, or does it mean a Syrian-led process, or potentially a hybrid process with both Syrians and kind of international actors?
I would, hi Hassan, congrats. Sorry. I would answer from my own perspective how I see things, but I would love to hear also from Hassam. Uh, to me, I believe that it should be hybrid process, considering so many factors, including that Assad and the inner circle of his inner circle and the high commanders who who were the like the masterminds of all of these atrocities are no longer in Syria. They fled the country. So I believe we should really keep going after them and make sure that they would be held into account. I remember the suffering of people who were victims of Rafat Assad crimes back in the 80s, and they couldn't figure out how to hold him accountable, where he was really enjoying his exile in France and having all of these privilege. So yeah, I believe this is the start, but for sure we need a Syrian-led on a national level accountability and justice processes, including after all, the societal level and the talks of reconciliation and truth-telling.
Okay, thank you, Noura. So let's shift now to talking about Syria's new leadership. Hayat Tahrir al-Sham is now in charge, led by Abu Mohammed al-Jawlani. One of the key concerns I've heard raised due to their former affiliation with al-Qaeda and some of their early actions in Idlib is that they won't be welcoming of other ethnic and religious communities such as Christians, Alawites, Druze, and Kurds. But so far, things mostly seem to be going well. Hosam, I'd like to turn it over to you. Is this a concern of yours? And what do you think Syria's new leadership needs to do to prevent sectarian strife in the country?
Thank you, Betsy. Good morning, everybody. And congratulations on the liberation of Syria from dictatorship. From my point of view, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham's previous affiliation with like terrorist groups, international terrorist groups, I guess now it's something in the past. Now it's history because they, to my mind, they demonstrated their commitment to Syria, and they are part of the Syrian revolution. And if you remember, Betsy, during the negotiations 2016-17, at that time they changed their flag and they adopted the Syrian revolution flag. And most of their fighters at that time, I guess now it's all the fighters are Syrians. So most of the liberated areas got liberated by the hand of the Syrian youth who were part of HNC, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, and other battalions. However, still, because I mean it's a fighting group after all, and they have now Damascus, and they are ruling. Of course, it's still a very early stage to judge and decide, but still they have to demonstrate their commitment to inclusive process of governance. They have to, the leadership must like engage in their leader should engage in dialogue with other components of the society, with ethnic groups, with political groups, to ensure that all Syrians are part of this process. All of us have a stake in the future of the country. So this is very, very much important to have inclusivity in governance, and especially now in the preparation for the transitional period. I believe now it's not yet started. The transitional period starts when we have a council ruling the country, where this council is overseeing a neutral environment, safe environment for the people to participate in the political dialogue and eventually in the constitutional steps. We'll have a council or a parliament or elected a body to draft the constitution, and after that we will have a referendum. And then we'll have also elections for whatever style of governance we will have in the future, which is a presidential style or parliamentarian form of governance, whatever it is that the people should decide. And elections at the end of this process will decide who are the individuals who will run the country for only a specific period of time. We will not go back to the dictatorship styles, definitely. And also, uh, we have to have a reformation undergoing for the security sector, for example. All the state institutions that have been hijacked by the regime, including the Ministry of Interior and security apparatus in Syria, all were the tools of the regime in the previous 54 years that deprived the Syrians of their freedoms and their normal lives. So all of this should be part of the leadership of the Hayat Tahrir Sham now in this specific period. It's the Hayat Tahrir Sham announced that the current governance, the current taking caretaking government is only for 3 months, and afterwards they should, according to their statements, they should announce a transitional period with a roadmap. So we are just waiting, and I'm just calling upon my colleagues and my fellow citizens to be patient, to just to see and judge on the merits, or judge on the performance of these people.
You mentioned earlier that they're beginning to have conversations with communities like Christians, Alawites, Druze, Kurds. Are there any specific examples you can provide to us of meetings that Hayat Tahrir Sham leadership has been having with communities?
What I said is they have to
Okay.
to submit. But still, I mean, so far we witnessed through the media, of course, their leaders, Jolani has met many of these delegations from Sueda, from Druze sect, a component of the Syrian society, of course, and from religious groups. Part of them, today I just saw a picture of him having a photo with a group of religious leaders. Some of them were very close to the regime. But I guess this is a message he wanted to convey, that we passed the time of revolution, and now we are trying to have a state, and state has to accommodate all the citizens. There's no division anymore. There's no dichotomy between revolution and loyalists to the regime, and unless those people have their hand stained with the blood of the Syrians, or have committed the crimes, or have been accused of some criminal act or something. So I guess I mean, the Hayat Tahrir Sham so far are pressing the right buttons. They are doing whatever show them, and most probably they are genuine, and we hope so, genuine in revealing that they are not in the mood to run the country alone with excluding anybody around them, or any component of the Syrian people.
Yeah. Well, that's great first steps. Noura, I want to turn the same question over to you. What do you think Syria's leadership needs to do to prevent sectarian strife in the country?
I think they should really be open to work with everyone and to focus on the fact that what unites Syrians now is more than what divides them. Syrian people, regardless their religion and whatever political affiliations, I believe they have very clear mutual interest. And I believe that should be the main point of discussions between the new leadership and the other parties. It won't be easy, I guess, especially to make sure that we have, as women, we have unpleasing history with dealing with all actors, including the most democratic ones. So just one of the factors that we are still skeptical. We cannot give any party the credit 100% before we see actions on the ground. But as a start, I believe it's smart. And to be honest, I was following how when they started liberating cities, starting from Aleppo, I was on phone with people from these cities, and I was following closely how they avoided perfectly the fight in Salamiyah. They negotiated peacefully with the Ismaili Council, and they reached an agreement, and they shook hands, and it was really a uh, peaceful moment that I believe we should always refer to. It was really thoughtful and smart of them that they focus, instead of focusing on fighting, they focus on negotiations and peaceful talks to avoid the engagement in fights with these communities. And they started sending them all of these assurances about the future, and they started opening the discussion for that, the discussions and meetings that Hosam mentioned. But I said that they started earlier than the moment of victory in Damascus, which is a good sign that also we can keep referring to, and we can build upon these. But how to make these sustain, and how to make sure that all Syrians are really engaged meaningfully in the processes, I guess it's a challenge, but also there is a space for this. The main obstacle to divide Syrians was the regime who created all of the divisions and fragmentation. The sustainability of the regime for all of these decades was creating the fragmentation between the Syrian people. And now it's our opportunity to move on and to start building the future that we believe in.
Mhm. Another question from the audience. How do you both reconcile a commitment to non-sectarianism through inclusion of religious elites close to the regime? I assume this means kind of the Alawite elites, and the need to hold those who enabled the regime accountable. It's that push and pull question between accountability for those who supported the regime and the need for non-sectarianism. How do you reconcile that?
If the question for me, it's very delicate. I mean, very important to strike the balance between the two. It's not an easy job at all to have transitional justice in place, and at the same time not to exclude a component of the Syrian people, Alawites or any other people. We used to say, I mean, during the revolution there was some sectarianism, but definitely the revolution itself, most of the elite in it and the political bodies were very successful in making at least the say is the sect of the regime is the sect of the regime. It's not Alawites. They are just a group of people, mafiosi style governance, protecting their own interests, not the interests of a specific component. At the end of the day, we have to have in place mechanisms for justice, for transitional justice. We have many experiences in theoretically, of course, in building traditional justice in Syria, national. But as Noura said, we have to have hybrid. We have to have an international component in order to have to adhere to international standards. In the same time, I guess inside the country, it's more societal kind of reconciliation between the sects and components of the Syrian society. So in one hand, we will have a traditional justice and all mechanisms of transitional justice, including truth commissions, reconciliation commissions, and all this. On the other hand, we have to work on having a reconciliation process to recreate the coexistence of the components of the society, especially in areas where we have all mixed up. And in some places, the lines between the sects are very narrow. In Homs, for example, in the coastal line, in Damascus in some areas. So in these areas, we have to make sure that we have reconciliation mechanism in place, societal ones at least. It doesn't have to come always from the top, from the state, from the governance, from the government. It has to come from the grassroots of the society. And this is, I guess, the duties of religious leadership of all sects, of all components. It's not an easy task. Now it's the time of euphoria. Everybody is happy because the revolution succeeded. But the time is also coming to once the dust is settled, everybody will think about the past, what happened exactly, and if he had any intention of revenge or something. We have to have mechanisms in place to say to these people that justice will be achieved, and your loved ones that you just deprived of, you will have your revenge in terms, but under the law, under a due process of law. So it's a very delicate balance. Theoretically, we accumulated many studies here and there, and we in the previous interim government under the opposition, there was a ministry, I guess, only specialized in this, and they produced volumes of studies and frameworks for this. But I hope that the new government, the new leaders in Damascus will listen to these technocrats who had this experience.
Mm-hmm. You also mentioned earlier, Hosam, the need for a transitional period and the different steps that should be in a transitional period. So talking about eventually the election of new leaders, talking about the, reviewing and revising the Constitution and the accountability process. And so, I worked with both of you extensively for years to support you as members of the Syrian opposition negotiating team, as well as kind of supporting others in the Syrian political opposition. Thus far, my understanding is that Hayat Tahrir al-Sham has not benefited from the preparatory work your teams did throughout the years, such as plans for a transitional period. And I'm curious, is this true? And do you think that should change? And how could that change?
True, Betsy. You helped us, and also the Syrians, all institutions, all opposition institutions started 2011. We have the day after series of studies. We have the roadmap for democratic transition in Syria. I worked in it in the political and constitutional reform, and you also worked with the HNC. I remember with the vision that they launched in London. So we have all this kind of, studies. Apparently, because the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, when they arrived in Damascus, it came as very sudden, as everybody knows. The collapse of the regime was not expected to happen that quickly after only 12 days of battles. So when they came to power in Syria, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, those people, they came unprepared for anything, including constitutional steps, including, if you remember, Betsy, we talked about in volumes for the constitutional declaration that should be step one in the pre-transitional period, to pave the road into to have a roadmap, and in the same time to preserve the state institutions. That did not happen. Now it's almost two weeks. We don't have anything in place. This is a difficulty we are facing. We reach out many like-minded people from the opposition, previous opposition, or from technocrats in Syria. We reach out for Hayat Tahrir al-Sham people, and we send some suggestions. We told them that we have already in place many ideas that should be that is very much could be adapting to to be suitable for the current situation. Apparently, they are very slow in because I mean the files, the portfolios they are dealing with is massive. The security, the electricity in Syria, and just imagine the capital of Syria. In most neighborhoods, they don't have electricity for more maximum 3 hours a day. So, and there's no fuel, there's no petrol, and the cars are barely moving in the street of Damascus now. So they have massive portfolios, massive files to deal with. So we have to be patient with them, I guess. Many people are trying to put them in the right track, including some of my colleagues now in Damascus. I've just had a phone call. So I guess time will come when they adopt something very similar to what we discussed before, Betsy, in the previous our previous attempts to produce a roadmap for constitutional process.
Thanks, Hosam. And Noura, what are your thoughts? Do you think that Hayat Tahrir al-Sham could benefit from some of the work you all did, kind of in preparation for peace talks, but also in planning for the future of Syria?
I agree with Hosam. Absolutely, they should. And I think it's worth to keep reminding everyone that this moment of December 8th started back in 2011 and started decades before with every single movement of civil society and political parties opposing and calling out the atrocities of this regime. So moving towards the future is not one actor work. It's the future of all Syrians, and every single effort has been done over the last years should be put in place to serve the future of the country. I am not. I'm no longer engaged in the political processes. In like Hosam, he's more aware and he's more informed about what's going on right now. But I believe in the good colleagues who would. I think they are good negotiators, and they would be able to open the space and agree with the new leadership on how to collaborate moving forward. I just want to take a moment to reflect on your previous question about the religious leaders and the actors. I believe the regime was Assad has secretized the religion in Syria, has secretized every single aspect of the using religious leaders and secretizing the speech even to maintain and sustain the dictatorship rule that he was holding. But I believe what would save the country is not only looking to the religious rights of Syrians. It's absolutely something constitutional. We all agree on this. But not people in our country, they are not very much religious, and looking through the lens of citizenship and rights is what we really look forward to. And even talking to a few people who are holding leadership roles on the ground in Syria in so many different cities, they kept insisting on the values of citizenship, and even the Christian leadership. In Aleppo, for instance, I was talking to them, and they were saying yeah, it's great that they assured us, but we are not it's not enough for us to be looked at as minorities. We are full equal citizens, and we are looking forward to engage in the future of Syria as full equal citizens, enjoying and practicing all our rights under the constitution as citizens, not as minority. So I believe there is a huge opportunity to achieve this. And for sure, considering religious leaders as one of the stakeholders, one aspect of stakeholders is important, but they are not everything. And it's not, to us, it's not the ultimate goal to keep looking at Syrian people through their sectors and religions. We we hope that we reach the moment of citizenship and equal citizenship rights and obligations of all citizens together.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. My next question, I'll start with you, Noura. What role do you think the international community should play in Syria's transition and future?
I think it should start through the principle of working with Syrians in meaningful partnership to support Syrians in what they believe it's best for their country. Throughout like the years of the revolution, we had like traumatic events of unpleasing engagement with the regional and international actors. We still have traumatic memories, even dealing with the UN, when we were not looked at as full as real actors. We didn't have like I recall a few moments when we didn't have agency. We were like looked at in this like whenever I was talking to the UN sometimes about the torture and the enforced disappearance and the imprisonment of kids. They were saying, "Oh, you should bring evidence." I'm like, "How I should bring evidence? I'm an eyewitness." So like all of these moments of the like trying to take the agency of Syrian people should really be part of the past. Moving forward, our people really need to take the agency and leadership of the process, and the international community is absolutely will play a vital role in supporting these processes, including the UN and other regional and international actors, but centering the cause and the efforts and the willing of Syrians in these processes and engagement and support is the key. I will pass it to Hosam. I hope he has better, more positive experiences.
Yeah, Hosam, what do you think? How should the international community be engaged to support Syrians?
Yeah, I agree with Noura with most of what she said. From my point of view, we have the international community should be partner in terms of rebuilding Syria. However, through the sovereignty of the new Syrian state, we have to come to the conclusion now that Syria should regain its self-esteem and self-confidence by rebuilding the country to claim the sovereignty on all its soil. And in the same time, we need the support for the rebuilding and restructuring and reconstruction of the state. Syria now is, as you know, after 14 years of war and destruction, if you go to the street of Damascus, you will see huge amount of destruction in the streets, and all the Syrian cities are the same as a result of the bombardment of the regime and the Russians. So we need the help, the support of the international community to rebuild the country. And at the same time, we need also their expertise. But to treat us now as a sovereign state again, they should be a mutual respect. They should be because as you know, in the past, the regime on one hand was the puppet of the Iranians and the Russians, and some part at least of the Syrian opposition were very much close too much to some of like one or more of the regional powers. Now it's at the time for the international community to respect that we have hopefully a new state. And also we have, the international community can play a role in supporting the civil society that we came under Assad for many years. Civil society was not existed. In the revolution for 14 years, we have now many very much innovative and very grassroots, very much very good civil society organizations that could help in promote democracy, in promoting human rights, promoting social cohesion. So in supporting the civil society under the rule of law, under the Syrian law would be also very much expected from international society. mediation in some areas of like to have the expertise of international organizations in mediation and conflict resolution in some areas in Syria. And also very much important to talk about the justice and accountability, because many of the war crimes committed by Syrian regime officers, those officers, as you know, fled to other countries. So I guess one of the main duties for the new government is to try to seek justice and to bring those people to the justice. So the international community should also help us in doing so. And if we have a hybrid process for transitional justice, it could be established through a new UN Security Council resolution to support the national traditional justice in Syria. So we have at least two branches, two arms of justice, one international and one local, because it's very much to have the revolution successful is to have those people brought to justice. So the international community could play a vital role in doing so.
Thank you. Here's a question for the audience, from the audience. How do you think the new Syrian leadership should handle its relationship with Israel? For example, regarding recent issues such as the dispute over the Golan Heights. And Hosam, would you like to answer that first?
Okay. First of all, let's just go back to the previous question. I intended to touch upon this. Syria is now, I mean, we have 5 armies at least in Syria. So we have the Turks, we have partially now the Iranians are fleeing, but also we have some Western powers in Syria, including the US. And Israelis are also still occupying, and they're expanding their occupation, which is very harmful for the Syrian people, for the Syrian national sovereignty, and for the new leadership to create more challenges for them. So our relationship with all nations around us should be based on international law and Security Council resolutions. And it's very much obvious that Golan Heights is dealt with under the Security Council resolution 224 and 338. And so application of international law is the key point here, the key word. As the Hisham said, when the leader, when he was asked about, he said, now we are very tired of war. We are not in a mood of having any war again. But still, Syrian state has its own interest, and everybody should respect that and respect the rights of the Syrian people to decide on their future, including to have their full sovereignty over all their lands.
And you mentioned the other forces that are in play in Syria currently. How do you think that should be dealt with in order to kind of now that Syria can kind of maintain a sovereign state, how do you think leadership should deal with the other forces that are currently in Syria?
Apparently, it's because it's very historical moment. I mean, everybody now feel in a way or another that Syria is going for a settlement. So, in everybody's interest to evact from the country, including the Russians. Apparently, they are started doing so. So we have 2 options: is to deal with Damascus now, the new leadership in Damascus, and to have like mutual understanding to gradually evacuate from Syria, including the American troops and others, and the Russians, of course, or to have bad relations with the new leadership. So it's much more. I mean, definitely everybody now should be in the mood of this taking the advantage of the regime fall in Syria and to start a good chapter with the new leadership. And hopefully this new leadership will deliver, will at the end of the day, they will do the transitional steps, and we will have elected new leaders very soon. And
Mhm.
if we want to have for the democratic new leadership in Syria, that should be coming hopefully in a few months' time, or maybe in 1 year, to have Syria free from foreign presence. So everybody should like respect and to try to help build this self-confidence of the Syrian people, and to enable the Syrian leadership and the Syrian people to have full sovereignty over all their territories.
Mhm. For our audience, I recognize it's now 10 a.m., but since we started 10 minutes late, I'm going to take the moderator's prerogative and extend it for an extra 10 minutes. But please, if you need to drop off, please do. Noura, the same question to you. What do you think Syrian leadership now should do with respect to what's happening in Israel and with respect to kind of all of the other foreign forces that are currently present in the country?
First of all, it's not only the interest of the current leadership, it's the interest of all Syrian citizens to maintain and protect the sovereignty of our country under the international law, using the available international mechanisms. I recall a few statements from civil society organizations condemning the recent military activities of Israel on the Syrian territory. It's not only about one actor, it's about, as Hosam mentioned, all international actors. And it's not an easy work, but it should be done to restore the sovereignty of the country. Assad has been treating Syria as a farm, unfortunately, out of all manners of international law, just feeling like, yeah, it's my own farm. I can give part of this farm to Iran, or I can give this farm to this part of the territory to Russia, so they can come to defend me, which is no longer the case. There's been we really need to dig in the archive of the former regime to see what kind of treaties or agreements have been signed with other countries. So once we have the new government under constitutional mandate, they can renegotiate on them, because all of these things, I don't know, I believe so many former diplomats and international lawyers from Syria are thinking already about all of these, how to revoke or how to reconsider all of these unlawful agreements have been signed to donate parts of our territories to certain countries to serve the regime interests. So I believe it's going to be a very hard process, but also I acknowledge the limitations that the current leadership in Damascus have, because they don't have the constitutional mandate. And I don't think that they should really do something unconstitutional and to take such the leadership or the ownership of moving forward with such agreements, or revisiting the agreements without having the constitutional mandate, and without really becoming or having an elected government taking over the leadership, or at least the transitional period. But it's going to be not a quite challenging work, including the fact that unfortunately whatever happened in Syria under the regime is not a public knowledge to all Syrians, including the treaties and so many other agreements were signed. So hopefully all of these documents would be found and would be processed and analyzed and revisited by great diplomats and international lawyers that we have, so we can assist collectively as Syrians how to proceed. But for sure, we have the manners of the obligations to work under the international law and to protect the sovereignty of our country.
Mm-hmm. Hosam, you mentioned Russian forces beginning to retreat, and I've read quite a bit about that as well. I haven't seen as much about Iranian forces leaving. I'm curious whether either of you have heard about that happening at all.
Yes, in fact, apparently most of the Iranian militias withdrew from Syria to the Iraqi borders, and they now creating problems in Iraq. I mean, there's a debate in Iraq now about allowing them in because most of them are not really Iraqis, and many of them not even Iranians, from other countries, but they've been gathered under the banner of Shi'ism and with sectarian ideology. So in terms of the on the ground, most of the militias have been gathered in some corners in Syria, mostly on the Iraqi borders. But we don't know much about the other like militias or fighters who were inserted in the fabric of the society in some places because it's been like long time in many towns that have been there for a long time. I meant. So we need time to know exactly if they evacuated or they've been like withdrawn entirely or not. This is about Iranian. The Russians apparently they are leaving. Hopefully they are backing up and just leaving Hamimim airspace. I'm not quite sure about if they have other places where they have heavy military equipments that needs time to dismantle and to withdraw. But hopefully, I mean, it's not in their interest anymore to be in Syria. And apparently, also, I mean, if we read the political map correctly, I guess they've reached some sort of understanding waiting for Trump administration to have some conflict resolution in Ukraine. So they are not, it's not in their interest to keep presence in Syria and create more problems in the region.
Thank you. So my next question is for both of you. And maybe I'll start with you, Hosam, since we spoke about this recently. But do you have plans to return to Syria? And if so, what do you intend to do when you're there?
Yes, I will go to Syria very soon, in a few days' time. And from my personal and on my personal level, I've been out of the country for 14 years now. The last time I was in Syria was 2010 when I was a diplomat in London. So I left to London. And since that time, I was not allowed to go back to Syria. I was afraid of my life, as you know. So on personal level, I'm eager, very eager to go back to see my family and my friends there. On terms of like more political and professional levels, I hope to be part of this dialogue that's going on in Syria. This political uh, debate about how to reform the country and how to go through the transitional period and all these talks about the new constitution and new elections. So it's very much interesting for me and I guess for all Syrians because we've been deprived of this atmosphere, of this environment for all our lives. And I'm 53 years old now. I was born after Assad the father came to power. So just imagine we haven't been a part of this kind of political healthy environment. So I'm very eager to be part of it, and maybe also to add something to the relationship with the international community. I have many ideas to go and discuss with people in Damascus.
Yeah. Well, I certainly hope you get a seat at the table because you're so well qualified for it. And of course,
Oh,
if you need any support, please reach out.
definitely, of course, we will need
Of
your
course.
support. Always.
And Noura, what about you? Do you have plans to return to Syria? And if so, what would you hope to do while you're there?
Yeah, absolutely. I left Syria in January 2013, and since then I couldn't return to the country. Uh, I have absolutely a plan to go for a visit. I can't determine when, but the visit for sure, like it's going to be for both personal interest, similar to Hussam, as well as public interest. On personal interest, it's not only to visit the family, it's to me to revisit the every single place that we protests in and where I was dreaming to protest in, including Omari Mosque in Daraa, for instance, or the Hama, Aleppo. We lost so many friends there, but we still have so many others. It's great to reestablish this relationship and revisit the commitment to continue fighting for this cause to have a free and democratic Syria. One of the personal interests as well I have, since now all detention places are free and hopefully they would be open until I go, is to have a closure. To I was detained at 4 locations, so I'm willing to revisit all of them. And to have a closure, just to feel from inside that we are no longer having these prisons for people who speak. And yeah, I'm still committed to continue my ongoing work to keep advocating for human rights and keep supporting survivors of torture through the few civil society organizations that I'm affiliated with, including the organization that I co-established 10 years ago. And we're still continuing doing this work. And I will pass the message to Hosam, please. I've been accumulating all of these experiences over the years just to serve in the moment. So whenever my effort and expertise are needed, I'm willing to support. But to me, I'm not willing to serve in any official positions. I believe it's time for the new generation and for so many Syrians, great Syrians, to step in and to take over this leadership role and to serve officially the country. But I'm always around to support anyone who's working to build a new, free, democratic Syria.
Well, and I know
you are the youth and new generations.
I'm approaching my 40s, so I'm no longer young.
I know you were so meaningful in the protest movement in Syria in the early years. And also, I know what you experienced. I can't be where you experienced it, but I understand what you experienced in prison. So I'm really hoping for that closure for you and that you are able to contribute, your expertise in various areas. So really looking forward to that. So last question, recognizing that we're already over the overtime, what are your hopes for Syria? And maybe we'll start with you, Hosam.
Definitely to have a unified, democratic, free Syria for all its people, and to overcome all these challenges that have been through in the past. It's about time now for the Syrian people who suffered all along this very uh, 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 bloodshed and torture to build their country, and also to have to reestablish or to establish the rule of law in Syria, and to have an inclusivity and inclusive political process at the end of it, to have, as I said, democratic style of governance that would protect the new generations from what have been other generations have been through in the past.
Thanks, Hosam. And you, Noura?
I absolutely agree. I can add on top of this that creating a country that everyone is equal, safe, and where the leaders and governments are working for the well-being and the prosperity of people. Our people suffered a lot for decades. And I think it's time to serve them and to work for their well-being. And hopefully, yeah, I have a lot of hope in our people. I have a lot of hope in Hosam. I trust you. I believe in you, Hosam. I believe in
Thank
so
you.
many other great Syrians. So I believe we just needed this space and needed to remove the main obstacle, basically the regime. Uh, and yeah, there's always dreams can become true. And we made the first dream true. So nothing is impossible for us anymore.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, it was a dream.
congratulations to both of you and to all the Syrian people. We really appreciate your time, and thank you to our attendees too for your questions and your time. I know I learned so much from Noura and Hosam, and I hope that you did too. So have a good day, and hoping for a free and peaceful Syria in the years to come.
Thank you very much for having us. Thank you very much, Betsy, for everything.
Thank
Of
you.
course.
Noura, all the best.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.